Once you've striked out your pattern on the fabric and you've cut it out, what you want to do is to transfer your lines from here to here to here to here, so that when you're working on your garment, you can see exactly where the pattern edge is, or where the darts or the other curves that you have are on every single side. Now, it's basically a running stitch. However, it's done with the thicker basting cotton, and the basting cotton is doubled. Now, I'm just using red so that it's a bit more contrasting and you can see what I'm doing, but this can also just be white, blue, yellow, whatever color you have available, as long as the color doesn't bleed through your fabric. So once you've doubled your thread, this is what you're going to do. For a straight line, all you need is to have a distance of about 1 inch or 3/4. But just like the running stitch, keep in mind that you bring your finger close to the needle so that the bite doesn't end up too big. So let's take a bite of about 1/8, like so. And then we take a distance of, let's say, 3/4, which is like 2 centimeters to 1 inch for a straight line. And we do the next, but don't pull the thread all the way through. Just allow a little bit of slack in between each stitch. Now we move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And so in the beginning it's going to look quite messy. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut through in between each stitch. And make sure you have a very sharp pair of scissors and that you are fully concentrated on what you're doing, because you can very easily cut through the fabric. Then what you'll do is you open the fabric so that it moves away from you and that you can clearly see the stitches. Once you've done that, you just slightly pull the two fabrics apart and you cut through in the middle of each stitch. Be careful not to cut the fabric. Also, if your shears or scissors aren't very sharp, they're just going to pull the thread out. What you don't want is to have a too big bite, because what happens is the mark stitch will come out a lot easier. If your bite is too big, and when you're looking from the back, what you're seeing here is just small dots. A big bite would almost be like a big tack, and you can just it catches onto something and it's just going to pull out. And when it pulls out and you've just done a fitting, you basically have to remark it again. So that's how you do mark stitch on a straight line. Now what happens is that you end up with like long threads on this side. What you don't want to do is to keep them in, keep them very long, unless you're doing a very, very, very loosely woven fabric. Then you also have to pull the fabric a bit more so that these are longer on this side and that this is longer on the other side. But in general, any type of normal kind of like fabric that's like plainly woven, or like a twill weave or satin weave, whatever, anything that is not loosely woven, what you can do and what you should do is to trim them short, like so. And I would expose them to steam as quickly as I can, so that the fibers of the thread expand and grip the fibers or the yarns of the fabric a lot better. Now, why do we trim it short? Well, it's for this reason. When you have a longer piece of thread, there is more grip. So when you kind of like rub over it a few times, the thread comes out. But when it's shorter, there is less grip. Of course, if you keep rubbing, it still comes out. But what happens is it takes a lot longer and a lot more effort to kind of like rub them out. So that's why you keep them short. Now, obviously, we're going to mark stitch a few things. So we're not just going to do a straight line. We're also going to do curves, corners, darts, and anything that resembles any of these shapes. So for corners, it's pretty much the same thing. Imagine you've done your straight line and you're now about to do the corner. What you don't want to do is to just, stop here and then start here again, because you don't see the actual point of the corner. So what you do is, as you approach the corner, you make the distance between your stitches slightly smaller. And then when you have, let's say, your corner here, you make sure that you really mark the corner. So you go in and you come out exactly the point of the corner, like so. And when you want to do the other side, you go again into the corner, and now you can continue. So when you flip this over and have a look, you can clearly see a point here. And that's important because when you're remarking, you want to know where the point is. If you don't have these two stitches, you know that these threads are, this line is coming this way and that line is coming the other way, but you can't really exactly tell where the point is. And it's important to know where the point is. So pulling these through and kind of like cutting them is exactly the same as you would normally do with a straight stitch. So now curves. Curves, exactly the same thing. However, because it's a curve and so there is more shape to it, what you're going to do is you're going to do a smaller distance between each stitch, just so that you can accurately see the curve. So instead of doing it like 3/4 on a straight line, you do like 3/8 or 1/4, like this. And then you cut through. And you open it up just like you did with the straight line, and that's it. So when you look from this side, you can clearly see the curve shape. Now, another thing is you're going to be mark stitching darts. And one of the things that I've seen people do is they mark stitch every single line that they see on the dart. And that is not good. Why is that not good? Well, because the way a dart is sewn, first of all, it's a symmetrical shape. So what people would do is they're going to fold this along the center line, like so. Not on the double, of course, but they're going to fold this along the center line. They're going to mark out this dart shape, and they're going to sew on top of that line. So what you don't want to do is to mark stitch on the actual outer edges of the sewing line. What you do have to do is to mark the top of the dart, the bottom of the dart, the center, and the actual center crease. So this is what we're going to do. First, we put a line or a stitch right in the middle of the center line, and then we do perhaps one in the middle here, one in the middle here, one in the middle here, and one in the middle here, like so. Then you need to do a horizontal one so that you can actually see where the dart ends or starts. So one like that and one like that. And the next stitch that you're going to do is one about here, here, and here. Now, obviously, when you're working for yourself, you know what to do. I mean, when I'm working for myself, I only do one in the middle here, one in the middle here, one in the middle here, and immediately I take the dart out after I've been cutting the mark stitches through. But if you're gonna keep this and it's gonna hang around, then it's good to do a couple of stitches more. So if you have a look, when you flip this over, what you'll see is like a center crease line. That's the line that we're going to use to crease the dart. Then you have the beginning point, the ending point, and the middle. So, and normally people know in the tailoring houses that they're working how much the dart is, or you can just measure before you do, so you don't need to mark stitch the width as well. So now all you need to do is to crease it from the center line, chalk your dart shape, you know where it starts, you know where it ends, and that's it. So now you know how to mark stitch.